I don't know how many of y'all saw, but the protesters in Israel who are obviously upset with Bibi Netanyahu because, over the course of 7 months, a little over 7 months, maybe more, we've gotten how many hostages? 8 months? And we only had to kill a few tens of thousands of people, right? 8 or 9. Yeah. And we only killed how many hostages in the process? It was a small price to pay, guys. Okay. It was a small price to pay. Did you guys think about that? Consider it. Only less than 7 stadiums full of women and children. That's nothing, dude. It's nothing. Okay. What's the difference between a rock and a stone? I mean, you understand if it was rocks and minerals. If you don't know what the difference between a rock and stone is, man, I don't even know who you are. That's crazy. Elle, thank you so much for the 11 months. Thank you. Rocks are sharp, stones are round. Let's run with that definition. Let's run with that one. Did we consider that the destruction of Gaza was what they wanted and not the hostages back? Wait a minute. Is it possible? Is it possible that Israel is a genocidal state? Nah, couldn't be that. Nah. He's right. I'm stoned and I'm anything but sharp right now. Stop it. Stop. And I'm sure as many of you guys saw that the news has been everywhere. The hostage rescue mission, which killed over 200 Palestinians, and we successfully got 4 hostages. I don't know if there's been a confirmed number of how many hostages were injured or killed in the attack, but yeah. Have you considered that the most moral army in the world wouldn't do such a thing? Oh. How do they even manage that? Yeah. Yeah. Damn, Redditors must be thriving. The number of people, by the way, I have to say, the number of people on Twitter that are like, I can't believe that leftists can't just be happy that hostages were saved. It's like, does that seem fair? 1 Israeli for every 50 Palestinians? That seems like a fair trade to you. That seems... Okay. Okay. Was that person happy after Uvalde because some of the kids were saved? Stop. Stop it. Stop. You're being mean to the Zionists right now. You're being bigoted towards Zionism right now by saying that, all right? And we take it very seriously around here. It's not even a transaction. The point is that if you can keep these 4 people alive, then you should have also kept those 200 people alive. It's like, realistically speaking, yes, if you are trying to evacuate hostages, there are almost certainly going to be casualties. The casualties should not be a 50-to-1 ratio. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable in the least bit. Like, in what world is that an okay trade? Images coming from Gaza are haunting. I can't believe in an age where friends of mine, I'm Israeli, saying people die in a war, it is what it is, and then they ask why the fuck I'm depressed. I have to say, I feel probably the worst for people who are Israeli or Jewish, who can see what is happening right now, who can see that this is just an ethnic cleansing, pretty cut and dry. And a large number of their friends and family have cut out contact or cut off contact and have stopped talking to anyone who dares suggest that the state of Israel is committing war crimes. Which is it's just sad. It's very sad. Supposedly, the IDF disguised themselves as Palestinians for the raid. Literal war crime, by the way. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Here's a Zionist saying Palestinians set the value of their own lives at that ratio. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Shall we? Let's start. Okay, take out your pivos, guys. Please take out your pivos, because I don't know how much I can handle on this.
200 Gazans were killed just to rescue 4 Israeli hostages. Let's say we believe the numbers, but over 100 terrorists were eliminated. Sounds like we did you a favor. Remember Gilad Shalit's deal for one Israeli soldier? You asked for over 1,000 Palestinian terrorists. It's actually you that set your value. You said it. This is your value. After Hamas and the innocent Palestinians broke into Israel on October 7th, I actually agree with this equation. And in the negotiation about the recent hostages deal, you talked about what? 200, 150 Palestinian terrorists for
Excuse me.
one Israeli hostage? You called the shots. So 4 hostages, only 200. You are welcome, first of all. We did you a favor. Next time, dear Palestinians, Hamas and the civilians, don't break into Israel again, because we know how this story goes. Yeah, you have to kill them. I will do it if I needed to. Seriously, for one hostage, we will get our people back. Next time, tell your people not to kill our people and not to rape them and murder. And you do whatever you do best. Tell them not to, or adios.
So when are you fixing the mop on your head, bestie? Because, like, I don't mean to be the one to say it, but it looks busted as hell. Okay? How is it that you look like you're chilling at a resort, and yet you cannot afford any hairstylist that can actually make you look good? Truly incredible. Fascists have never had good hair. I think it's just part of the... I think it comes with the territory. She got that Azula deranged cut. For real. She's kind of rocking the, Gollum, crazy, hateful, genocidal freak kind of vibe. Like, aren't they making a new... Was it the Lord of the Rings movie or a Lord of the Rings game or something? Aren't they doing that? Am I mistaken? I feel like I saw something about this. Yes, it's a movie. Lord of the Rings Gollum movie. Dude, did they cast her in this? Because I think she would fit the part pretty well, to be honest.
200.
Not gonna lie. Personally, they weren't breaking into anything, ladies. Their country. Ugh. Careful. They don't respond well to reality. Okay, careful. They're allergic to reality. Okay. The thing that I don't understand, okay? I understand the centrists and the fence sitters that are like, I just really hate all forms of loss of life. Why can't we just all get along? And then there are the people that just ignore all of the context of that region. They just ignore the fact that this is an ongoing conflict that has been around not since October 7th, but since 1948. That I can understand that mentality. It's like you want to adhere to this worldview that we can all be friends and get along and everything, and that there aren't genocidal freaks that roam this earth. Okay. These people, I just cannot understand how you can be so callous towards the death of innocent people. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. I'm so confused by it. Like, these are real people that are being harmed. Real human beings. The only difference between you and any of those people is that you were born on the right side of the territory. You were born on Israeli territory. That's it. That's the only difference. Just like a mile of space is the only difference. But okay, sure, man, sure. I just also wanted to say a quick notice. I don't know if that's the right word, but I have seen like the video footage that has been very heartbreaking on Twitter. And unfortunately, until Twitter introduces a way to put like a blur or a trigger warning on posts, I have not been liking or retweeting them. I've been bookmarking a lot of them because, again, I know that there are people that go on Twitter and they don't necessarily want to have to see that every day, and people who maybe that they would find that content triggering. But just know that it's not great. It's not great. Most Israelis will never interact with Palestinians in their daily lives, and it shows. Well, they will, but they'll like interact by throwing like rocks in the settlements. Or, they'll interact by watching and cheering as the IDF member kills a random Palestinian kid. Hi, Binella. Or shouting Shalmota at them. Oh, gosh, yeah. Yeah, it's odd. They have such an entitlement and superiority complex that they believe that they are wrong from saying stuff like this. That they don't think that they're wrong saying stuff like this. They don't think they have to be censored. They're evil. Like this, do you think this video is going to age well, dude? Because it's not. I can tell you with certainty it is not. Thousand-yard stare while scrolling through Twitter. Yeah. You'd think kids would be universally off limits, but did you consider that those are Hamas children? I bet you didn't. I bet you didn't consider that. I mean, there's even people like this guy. Tweet that reads, dozens and dozens killed, including many children to save 4. Somebody please explain to me the acceptable ratio of human life. And this piece of shit scumbag responds, 1 million Gazans for 1 Israeli life would be acceptable to me. Steve Plotnicki, a New York food critic. I feel like there's a bit of like a keeping up with the Kardashians effect, where after the Kardashians became very famous, a lot of women began getting plastic surgery to look as similar as they could to the Kardashian siblings because they were considered like peak attractiveness, specifically Kim K, right? I feel like the same thing is happening, but with like Bibi Netanyahu. It's like those books where it's like a dude transforming into a frog or something. Animorphs, except it's like you are a Zionist and you slowly start turning into Bibi Netanyahu. Like you start morphing into him. And it happens whether or not you want it to. His neck is so thick. Stop. Slowly all transforming into Baron Harkonnen's body types. Food critic? You mean unemployed? Me when I have a job. Yes, this food is getting some notes of food here. Oh, Lord Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Okay. So I was thinking it would do us some good to get a bit of a recap on the situation for those who I guess haven't been caught up yet. There have also been some hostage interviews that I wanted to watch with you guys because I think that I found them to be very enlightening. Namely, hostages, at least one hostage talking about how she did not know whether or not she would be saved because IDF rockets were hitting the building that she was in. And that hostages were killed with IDF rockets. Interesting, right? Okay. Hold up. Acceptable losses. I guess the thing that I don't understand is how do you not feel like a demon unironically saying like, this is an acceptable amount of death? How do you not feel like an absolute like demon saying that? Mm-hmm. All right.
So the Palestinian death toll has risen to more than 37,000 following a major Israeli military assault in Gaza on Saturday. At least 274 Palestinians were killed in an operation to free 4 Israeli captives. Medical teams remain just overwhelmed.
Luckily, this video has the anything that's to us already pre-blurred, which is appreciated.
By the large numbers of people injured across the Strip. The EU's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, has condemned the attacks and called for an immediate end to what he calls a bloodbath. Israeli forces targeted Deir al-Balah and al-Nusrat in central Gaza. Hamas says other captives were killed in that operation. Julie Dager has this report.
Panic as Israel carries out massive strikes. Palestinians fleeing as fear spreads. Bodies scattered across every corner of al-Nusayrat refugee camp. Hundreds of victims of an Israeli operation to free captives held for months by Hamas.
We saw missiles flying over our heads. Nobody is protecting us. We don't know where the children are. We lost them, and now we're being displaced for a third time with no idea where to go.
As the bombardment continued, eyewitnesses say Israeli soldiers entered the camp concealed in a truck with Gaza license plates, opening fire on Palestinians.
I caught sight of a special forces unit. It had furniture in the vehicle to make it look like it belonged to displaced people. Suddenly, the operatives got out 2 ladders and came into our home, fully armed. Chaos erupted with gunfire and explosions.
The nearby Al-Aqsa hospital is flooded with injured Palestinians. Doctors describe the scenes inside the facility as a complete bloodbath. It looks like a slaughterhouse, one medic said. They're battling a situation that's near impossible.
The hospital is full of patients, and we have no space for more.
Apologies, I was muted. You guys didn't see that that was a Hamas baby that was crying? The baby that was crying in that video, he was a Hamas operative. They defeated the evil, guys. They did it.
People. Al-Aqsa Hospital is now working on 1 generator because the other one has stopped. This can lead to catastrophe.
The number of dead after Israelis' military assault on al-Nusayrat refugee camp will rise. Dozens of bodies buried under the debris are still unaccounted for. The Israeli military has been attacking the area for weeks, intensifying its airstrikes every day.
I was playing with my friend. I came out and saw the stairs covered with blood. There was nothing. We remained inside and saw tanks going back and forth. The house was burning and the smells were awful.
Israel's latest attack has been condemned internationally, with the EU calling it a massacre and the killing of civilians appalling. Julie Dager, Al Jazeera.
Well, the extent of the damage caused by Saturday's attacks in central Gaza is becoming clearer as Palestinians return to what's left. Israeli aircraft and artillery targeted a number of residential buildings in the operation to rescue the captives in Gaza. Tents where displaced Palestinians have been living were also targeted. The UN Special Rapporteur on the right to housing has denounced countries that celebrated the release of the captives without mentioning the hundreds of Palestinians who were killed.
They shot and killed anyone who moved from one place to another. They bombed this house and killed anyone in the streets.
You saw special forces coming down from the helicopters.
The helicopters were carrying commandos who descended on rubber ladders from them. At first, we thought they were landing on Al-Auda hospital, but they came down here to destroy everything. We could no longer see anything because of the smoke and darkness that enveloped the neighborhood. There were hundreds of people killed and wounded. After that, people began to pull out the dead and injured. There were some young men charging cell phones over there, and all of them were killed. The attack happened suddenly, and I can't remember everything. All I remember well is the helicopters dropping the commandos. I also remember the scene of people screaming in pain after being shot, and the houses being leveled, and the commandos killing the people.
According to the field reports, the Israeli occupation forces used 2 civilian vehicles in Nusayrat. The first was a small car and the second was a bigger one carrying weapons. This was clear in the videos mentioned by different media outlets. The soldiers who took part in the massacre played the role of displaced people. They were dressed as civilians with the plan to commit a massacre against women, children, and the elderly in this camp. The field reports also mention that Israeli forces bombarded 89 houses full of civilians in Nuseirat. So many houses were bombarded without prior warning. This confirms that the occupation intended to commit this brutal massacre.
They're not really commandos when they're facing civvies. It's like an over-glorified Boy Scout. I mean, people who've been studying this conflict for decades know that Israel cannot actually win in a conflict that is fair, that is combatants versus combatants, which is why they have publicly said that they would much rather engage in collective punishment. And it's because, hey, shocker, crazy idea, but if you take a bunch of random Israelis and just give them guns and tell them, all right, your training is to go shoot unarmed kids in settlements, they can't really do anything other than attack unarmed civilians. And when they actually have to be in armed combat, unsurprisingly, Israeli forces are dog shit.
And they are committing genocide against the civilians.
Let's speak now to Al Jazeera's Tariq Abu Zoom, who's outside Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah, speaking to us on the phone. So, Tariq, tell us what the situation is there as the death toll continues to rise.
Well, the situation is getting incredibly dire as more casualties have arrived to Al-Aqsa Hospital since the early hours of this morning. Now, we have been touring between the department of that original equipped hospital, and what we saw was really devastating. We saw hundreds of patients on the corridor of the hospital, as the capacity of the hospital is absolutely overwhelmed with not only patients but with those wounded who have been critically attacked by the Israeli army. Yesterday were at least, we are talking about 274 Palestinians being killed, including 64 children and 57 women, despite the fact that at least 698 Palestinians were wounded. And this number is extremely unprecedented since the beginning of the war. What we see is that the hospital is grappling to provide them with the treatment, as Gaza's government media office says that the hospital right now is doing its best in order to provide them with essential medical care in light of that chronic shortage of medical basic supplies, as the attack yesterday also has caused a very devastating even consequences in terms of the residential buildings, as the Israeli army had attacked at least 89 residential buildings during the operation in the Nuseirat refugee camp. So there is more growing and grave concerns about such similar repeated attacks on the middle area if the Israeli army is so interested to frozen the military offensive across the Strait, as these patients inside the hospital even have been, and Bruce wounded, saying that we are no longer safe, as we are right now suffering from the repercussions of these Israeli repeated unrelenting attacks on the central areas where we say it will be safe for us.
So, Tariq, yeah, as you say, it's just hard to imagine looking in from the outside just how frightening it must have been. And the fear that must stay with you being in that area, just being worried about it all happening all over again.
Well, fear is everywhere in this Strait. We can say that people in the north are really terrified and afraid, similarly to people in the central and even who are trapped in the western part of Rafah district, close to Al-Mawasa area. Now, everyone's so disappointed, and even Palestinians are genuinely afraid of even more escalation of the Israeli attacks. Now, within the early hours of this morning, even in the central areas of Gaza, more than 16 Palestinians were killed. In the north of the Strait, there were overnight attacks that killed dozens of civilians, and at the same time there is only a kind of a let-up in bombardment from land and air, by the way, in the southern part where the operation is still ongoing in Rafah. So clearly the entire Strait is under the Israeli attacks, as Palestinians are really trapped in a very small space of land called the Gaza Strip, where they are unable to leave there, as the Israeli army continues to bomb civilians on a daily basis, as these people had lost hope in terms of getting to a ceasefire, as these negotiations to bring a ceasefire to the table remain deadlocked till now.
All right, Tarek, thanks for that update. Tarek, I resume there. Outside Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah.
Muted Omega lol. So the TLDR on it is that Israeli forces had been planning this hostage rescue mission for weeks and finally went in and attempted to evacuate the hostages. Now, Israel is claiming that they had less than 100 casualties. As you might imagine, that's not the case, and Israel is, hear me out, lying. I know, crazy. And what is very interesting to me is that when I was looking at this yesterday, almost every single article I saw on this was talking about how the pier, the humanitarian aid pier that was built, was used in this mission. And suddenly now the US put out a statement saying that it wasn't used, but for some reason it's impossible to find any articles contrary, even though that wasn't the case 2 days ago. Israel lying? No way. Most moral army. It's like, I think all of us smelled horseshit when it came to, we have to build this pier for humanitarian aid. It's like, what's wrong with all of the other humanitarian aid passages right now? They were fine and secure for literally years, but suddenly you can't use it anymore? Okay. And here's a good AP article on the matter, which talks about Israel rescues 4 hostages taken in Hamas October 7th attack. 210 Palestinians are reported killed. Fucking finally not using passive language anymore. Thank fucking God. They were taken, so they let me just read it. Israelis were jubilant as the army said it freed 4 people in the daytime operation in the heart of Nuseirat, raiding 2 locations at once while under fire. All were well, the military said. They were taken by helicopter for medical checks and tearful reunions with loved ones after 246 days held. Incredible. Israeli aircraft. Oh, here you go. Netanyahu in a statement vowed to continue the fighting until all hostages are freed. The operation was daring in nature, planned brilliantly, except for the part where you killed hostages in the process. But okay. Sure. And executed in extraordinary fashion. Extraordinary fashion. Minister Yoav Gallant said, I fucking hate this piece of shit human garbage. Israeli aircraft hummed overhead as the bodies of 109 Palestinians, including 23 children and 11 women, were taken to Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital, where spokesperson Khalil Degran told the Associated Press that more than 100 wounded have also arrived. He said overall 210 had died and had been taken there and to Al-Auda Hospital, saying that he had spoken to the director there. Al-Auda's numbers could not be confirmed immediately. The horrific massacre committed today by Netanyahu and his fascist government against the Palestinian people in Gaza, which led to slaughter 210 and more than 400 wounded so far, under the pretext of liberating those detained by the resistance, confirms what the resistance has said repeatedly, that Netanyahu doesn't plan to reach an agreement to stop the war and free the Israelis peacefully, said Bassem Naim, a senior Hamas official now based in Lebanon. AP reporters saw dozens of bodies brought to Al-Aqsa Hospital from the Nusra and Deir al-Bella areas as smoke rose in the distance. Neighboring Egypt condemned with the strongest terms Israel's attack on the Nusra refugee camp, with its foreign ministry calling it a flagrant violation of all rules of international law. Oh, thanks. Thank you guys so much for using such strong terms. Israeli military said it had attacked threats to our forces in the area, adding that one commando died from his wounds. Oh my God. Israel's military spokesman Daniel Hagari told reporters that military intelligence determined some time ago that the hostages were being held in 2 apartments about 200 meters away from each other in the heart of the Nusayrat camp. He said that the forces had trained repeatedly on a model of the apartment buildings. A U.S. hostage cell provided advice and support throughout the process of locating and rescuing the hostages, according to Biden administration official who was not authorized to comment and requested anonymity. Hostage cells are multi-agency teams. Pushing back against the social media claims, the U.S. Central Command said in a tweet that neither the American-built pier in Gaza that brings aid in for Palestinians by sea, nor any of its equipment, personnel, or any assets were used in the Israeli operation. It said Israel used an area south of the pier to safely return hostages. Really? Yeah, I totally believe you guys. I totally believe you guys. Hamas took about 250 hostages during the October 7th attack. About half were released in a week-long ceasefire in November. About 120 hostages remain, with 43 pronounced dead. Survivors include about 15 women, 2 children and under 5, and 2 men in their 80s. Saturday's operation brought the total number of rescued hostages to 7. 2 were freed in February, and 1 was freed in the aftermath of the October attack. Israeli troops have recovered the bodies of at least 16 others, according to officials. The latest rescue lifted some spirits in Israel as divisions deepen over the best way to bring the hostages home. Sorry, it's not this area. It's a different article. They had been planning this for a month. How long has the pier been open? You know what's also very interesting? That none of these numbers show how many died directly because of IDF rockets. Here's a little picture if anyone is curious about the numbers regarding hostages. 105 were freed via temporary ceasefire. 4 were released by Hamas. 3 with white flags were killed by the IDF. There were 4 Israeli rescue missions. 1 hostage was killed, 1 soldier was saved, 2 hostages were saved, at least 74 people were killed, and 4 hostages were saved, at least 210 people killed. Israeli attacks on Gaza have killed an unknown amount of hostages in Hamas captivity and at least 36,000 people overall. Interesting. Right before the pier was placed, Matthew Miller said Israel had a right to target civilians.
Clear to the government of Israel that we expect them to do everything that they can to minimize civilian harm. We've been through this before. It applies in this situation too. It is a difficult situation. If it is true that you have this site where Hamas is hiding inside a school, other militants are hiding inside a school, those individuals are legitimate targets, but at the same time, they're embedded near civilians. Israel has a right to try and target those civilians. Israel has a right to try and target those civilians, but they also have the obligation to minimize civilian harm and take every step possible to minimize civilian harm. So that's why we were pressing the government of Israel and the IDF to be completely transparent about what happened here.
It must have just been a coincidence, right? That they said that they had been planning this for weeks and then the pier was just recently built. I mean, okay. Look at how disingenuous these people are as well. Like this person posting saying death toll from Israeli attack on Nusayrat camp rises to 274. Look at how disingenuous these pieces of shit are. You're such a liar. American flag in bio, Israeli flag in bio, reposting himself pushing misinformation propaganda, namely this image of an actor this guy was confirmed to be this like YouTuber who goes and does a bunch of like acting skits and stuff and interviews lots of different people doing lots of different things, which is why you can see him wearing lots of different things in this. This one in the middle was literally from a film talking about the crimes that are occurring in Gaza. So, yeah, no shit, this film, this fictional film that was recorded somewhere else, I think it was recorded in Lebanon, to document and show, oh, here, this is what is currently happening. Oh, you mean to tell me that they're actors? Whoa, that's crazy. And then in some of these instances, like this guy over here, it's literally just a different guy. Okay. But we're still spreading this picture around, even though it's been disproven, okay? Yeah, I mean, sure. Mm-hmm. Did you cover the Al Jazeera journalist that kept the hostage in his home? Is there any veracity to it? I haven't even seen this story yet. And I'm automatically... sus, let's say. It's very funny also that they call them precision bombing. Area of Nusayrat refugee camp, Gaza Strip, where Israel used U.S.-supplied precision-guided bombs to free 4 hostages. It's over 270 Palestinians that were killed in the precision bombing. I mean, they're definitely being precise. They're definitely being precise. Yeah. Clubs, thank you so much for the gift sub. The targeting system and accuracy is precise, but the explosion is not. Like, okay. Okay. Really toned in on those kids. Yeah, really. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, as many people have been talking about already, where is it? There's an article that I want to show you guys. Here we go. This one. The U.S. denies a Gaza aid pier was used in deadly hostage rescue operation. U.S. denied on Sunday that a pier in the Mediterranean Sea set up its military for aid deliveries that was used in the evacuation of 4 Israeli hostages rescued from Gaza on Saturday. Gaza health authorities said 274 people, mostly civilians, were killed during a hostage rescue operation under the cover of Israeli air attacks. The U.S. statement comes after a video emerged on Twitter showing an Israeli Black Hawk helicopter close to the pier picking up hostages and security forces before departing. The pier can be seen along with an aid vehicle and military equipment, including a U.S. counter-drone system. The humanitarian pier facility, including its equipment, personnel, and assets, were not used in the operation to rescue hostages today in Gaza. An area south of the facility was used by the Israelis to safely return the hostages to Israel. Any such claim to the contrary is false. Guys, you don't think that the U.S. would lie, right? Because they've never done that before, ever, right? Also, the phrasing is so malicious. It literally leaves out the fact that they used an aid truck to sneak in and then they bombed their way out. Leaked diplomatic cable about the disinfo surrounding the pier, dated just a few days before this went down. This is Ken Klippenstein posting, diplomatic cable leaked to me reveals Biden admin is worried about social media posts claiming its Gaza aid pier will lead to U.S. military involvement in the area, which calls it disinfo, despite the fact that the pier was paid for and positioned by the Pentagon. Palestinian social and traditional media has been critical and mistrustful concerning the U.S. military constructed joint logistics over the shore humanitarian aid pier in Gaza since its announcement. What? No. People finally are starting to not believe America when they say shit? What? That's crazy. U.S. messaging has been consistent on the humanitarian nature of the piers and efforts by the DoD and U.S. aid to directly address questions posed by Palestinian and pan-Arab press have been useful in countering a growing narrative of disinfo. OPA assesses that continuous high-level messaging is effective in combating disinfo surrounding this issue, either through centralized media opportunities like the May 15th Hub Call hosted in London, through combined press briefings like those DoD and USAID have been holding regularly, or through more frequent engagement with influential regional and pan-Arab media outlets. OPA also suggests that offering pan-Arab outlets the opportunity to embed journalists and report on the delivery of distribution of aid via JLOTS would be effective in countering disinfo. In recent weeks, certain discrete conspiratorial narratives have coalesced, asserting that the U.S. is planning to use the pier as a launching point for U.S. troop deployment into Gaza and as a staging area for future U.S. control of natural gas reserves near Gaza, or as a way to distract from land border closures elsewhere in Gaza. Wait, what? No. What? Damn, they're really just saying the quiet part out loud, huh? Who would ever think that, huh? Who? Yeah. Yeah. Note that this was sent on June 3rd, 5 days ago. Also, the idea is a little bit preposterous. Like, okay, guys, hear us out. U.S. government here. We did give Israel, like, the trucks that they used to sneak in on, and we did give them the money for these planes that they used to get out, and we did help them target the buildings, and we did walk them through the operation, and we did give them the bombs. But no. Are you guys crazy? We would never let them use our pier. So you're down to help on all these other fronts, but this is where you're drawing the line and you expect us to believe it? Like, what the fuck? No. They were getting on a helicopter that just happened to be right next to the pier. Okay. Sure. Whatever you say, man. Okay. Here's testimonials as well. Not sure how many of you guys have seen this. A wounded Palestinian eyewitness describes the Israeli forces who snuck into El Nusra refugee camp. Today, we're in a humanitarian aid truck coming from an American pier. They were in a truck carrying clothes and cooking pans. I was walking in the street and the truck stopped. It was carrying clothes and kitchen pans. I thought it was a humanitarian truck from Rafah. Suddenly, maybe 10 armed men were exiting the vehicle. Special forces. They shot me in the chest and in the arm. Then there were gunfire and shelling. I don't know what happened next. There were explosions, and in the end, they retreated. The young men took me and recovered me to the hospital. They took me to Al-Aqsa. From Al-Aqsa, they brought me here. I don't know what happened next. The market was full, but then many were shot, and they were lying headless on the floor, I think is what that was supposed to say. In the video, trucks and an Israeli tank that the Palestinian eyewitness mentioned can be seen at the moment when the market area in Nusra was bombed. Here's the truck. Looks like they used the aid truck as a disguise, but not as a disguise, but as a fucking lure. I can't believe all the people that think holding hostages is worse than killing thousands of people. I can't believe they use this as an excuse to cause more death. It's demonic. I just can't believe that anyone thinks that this is like a success. Here, trucks in what appears to be an aid convoy are seen moving alongside a line of Israeli tanks just before the attack.
شاحنة مساعدات ونحن نعلم كم يحتاج أهالي غزة للمساعدات استخدام شاحنة مساعدات هذا أخلاقي من قبل جيش الاحتلال لتنفيذ عملية تحرير أو تخليص رهائن. نعم هو ما الذي فعله؟
Israeli tank followed by a truck.
مرت الآن تبعناها الآن تحديدا مرت هذه الشاحنة من أمام هذه
followed by more tanks.
شاحنة مساعدات.
Okay. It's a success when you don't view Palestinians as humans, which Zionists don't. Al Jazeera has also reported that the IDF killed 3 hostages in the process. Hey guys, we saved 4 hostages, but we might have killed 3 of them. Sorry, our bad. Sorry, you guys know how it is. Our bad. Okay. So I don't know if the US government reached out to a bunch of these news organizations, but I swear to God, yesterday when I was reading up on this, every single article that I read on this said that the aid truck that they snuck in on came in via the pier and that the helicopter that they exited out of was on the pier as well. And suddenly, now all of them just say the US denies that the humanitarian aid pier was used in this mission. Just is a little bit weird for me. This is a bit weird for me. There's literally even a video of it. I also love the complete distraction. Like here's the thing. This is the thing that anyone who's even this critical of the US and is even a little bit aware of what the US does and the bullshit that they pull. If the pier was used, no, it wasn't. And if it wasn't used, now we're too busy talking about the pier to talk about the fact that the US helped in every step of the way up until that point. We all knew that it was going to be used for military operations. I mean, it's silly. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that they ever tried to lie to people, I guess. Now, I wanted to also show this.
4 Israeli hostages kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th have been rescued. Their 245-day nightmare coming to an end. NBC News.
Advertising the pier as aid for Gazans is the equivalent of making a hospital or another protected location as a forward operating base. Correct. This was actually in a comment on that leaked cable I linked earlier. It shows the helicopter taking off next to the pier.
לא, אתה לא רואה מעלים.
Guys, they weren't using the pier. It was on the sand right next to the pier. It was 10 steps away from the pier. It's very different. This is literally the same thing as when someone says, I'm not touching you, but their finger is like this close to you. And they're like, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. We're not using the pier for this mission. We're just really, 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 really close to the pier and are taking advantage of the fact that the pier is considered a designated safe zone. Technically, the IDF is using aid workers at the humanitarian pier as human shields. That is a great way to put it. Yep. This article actually mentions it. I think we read this one, yeah. So it's just so anyways, I would like to go back to watching this really quickly. Here we are. The interview with the hostage.
Correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now. So, Raf, what are you hearing about the condition of the hostages and the next steps in the coming days and how all of this came together?
So, Michael, the IDF is saying that these 4 hostages freed from Gaza are in good condition medically, and we have seen pictures of Noah Argamani, who our viewers will remember. She was that young woman being taken into Gaza from the music festival on October 7th on the back of that motorcycle, her hands outstretched to her boyfriend, who was also being kidnapped, being marched away into Gaza. We've seen images of her this morning at a hospital in the greater Tel Aviv area. You can see her there reuniting with her father, Yaakov. And it is just extraordinary to think that 8 months and 1 day after she was kidnapped, she is smiling, she is laughing, she's speaking with her family. She spoke on the phone earlier today with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It was very interesting, guys. She said in that phone call, I haven't spoken in Hebrew in such a long time, which suggests that she was being held on her own away from other hostages. Now, that does appear to chime with the report we are getting from the Israeli military. Details obviously still emerging. Just setting the scene here. This was a raid in the center of Gaza in broad daylight at 11 a.m. The Israeli military says hundreds of soldiers took part, that there was support from air and by sea. They say that they stormed 2 separate buildings. Now, we believe that Noah Argamani was being held on her own in one of those buildings, and the 3 male hostages were being held in a separate building. At least 1 Israeli soldier seriously wounded in this raid, but this appears to have...
Oh my God, an Israeli soldier was wounded. Oh, stop the press. What are we going to do?
Have been the single greatest success in terms of hostage rescue that we have.
Maybe he was attacked by Hamas. Maybe he was attacked by Israel. Who knows?
That Israel has had in the course of this 8 months of war. Remember, guys, only 3 other hostages had been rescued alive up until this point. And today, 4 hostages in just a couple of hours. Now, you can see Noah on your screen there. She is speaking.
And like, for me, it's like, I feel for the hostages. I feel for the people that are sitting there and they don't know if tomorrow will be another day that they will live or will die. They have no idea of knowing. And I feel for those people. I would not want to be a hostage. I don't want anyone I know to be a hostage. And I feel really bad for the people who are currently hostages. Doesn't sound great. But for you to celebrate this, for anyone to celebrate this is unbelievable to me. That for this one positive interaction that we have here, that we get to see this instance where this person gets to be reunited with people that they love and care about. Hundreds of others are mourning the loss of the people that they know that died in that attack. For this one person that is reunited, there are literally hundreds of Palestinians that are actively right now mourning the death of their children, their siblings, their parents. And we get to celebrate, where this is a time to celebrate. Are you fucking kidding me? How dare you? How dare you? I do too. I'm glad that they're back safe because they didn't feel safe the entire time they were hostages because of the Israeli bombing. Sadly, I don't think that they will recognize that Israel killed more of their friends. I mean, no, even this woman, I will pull up the interview that she talked about. Even she says, I thought I was going to die in the Israeli strikes. Our buildings were getting hit by IDF precision strikes, and I did not know if I would live through them. Also, how many hostages has Israel itself blatantly killed beyond these three beyond the three that they shot point blank? You mean the captors, the guys who held them hostage? What do you mean, what is this? I don't know what you're referencing. I'm sorry. Let's get back to the video. Sorry, these are others.
Speaking to Israeli President Isaac Herzog, who was telling her just how overjoyed Israel is to see her safe, to see her home. There have been scenes of celebration across this country today. The lifeguards on the beach in Tel Aviv announcing the news over loudspeaker, people jumping up and cheering in front of the Mediterranean on this Saturday here in Israel. We met Noah's father, Yaakov, on October 8th, less than 24 hours after his daughter had been kidnapped by Hamas. He is at her side right now. Her mother, as far as we know at this point, is not. Her mother's name is Leora, and she is dying of brain cancer. And for these 8 months, she has been telling the world that her dying wish was to see her daughter once again. Now, she is in very serious condition. She is at another hospital in Tel Aviv, but we believe that mother and daughter are going to be reunited later on today. Noah's boyfriend, Avi Natan Or, who you see in that video from October 7th being marched by a crowd of militants into Gaza, remains one of the 120 hostages still being held. So while this is obviously a moment of joy, you see Avi Natan there, while this is obviously a moment of joy for Noah and her family, her partner remains inside Gaza. His fate is unknown at this hour, as is the fate of so many of those 120 other hostages. Now, guys, I should say that while there is celebration here in Israel, there is mourning in Gaza right now because there are reports of at least 50 people killed during this Israeli raid. We know that there was intense bombardment by Israeli aircraft, by Israeli ships to cover the special forces as they moved in. We don't know how many of those 50 or so people killed were militants,
50.
How many of them
50 of them.
were civilians. But of course, this is just an enormous
totally
moment
soulless
here in Israel, and it is really hard to overstate the happiness here. One Israeli friend told me the whole country is crying.
Fuck off, dude. I fucking hate MSNBC. I'm trying to find here we go. I think this is the one. I'm trying to find the interview that she did. If anyone has a link for it, please post it. This one? No. Link for what? There is a video where this specific hostage spoke about her experience being held in captivity and spoke about the rescue mission and all the details surrounding it from her experience, talking about how I moved between several apartments during my detention and did not enter the tunnels. From time to time, I would come out for air disguised as an Arab woman. I saw a missile enter the house where I was being held, and I thought I was going to die. And I'm just trying to find an official source for it that's actually her speaking. It feels like it's like, maybe I should look on Twitter, actually. I feel like Google search has gotten so dog shit, and with it, YouTube search as well. I think it was this one. Wait. Yeah. Okay. I found it. I don't, again, YouTube search is so bad now. I don't understand if it's like unironically just SEO or if it's censorship or what the fuck it is, but it's impossible to find anything there. Hamas releases a video of hostages titled "Tomorrow we will tell you their fate. Your government is lying." That's why it's not available anywhere. So this is from. Oh, this is different. Was it this one? This is from January. No, this is not the one that I'm looking for. Adam Ruins Everything has a good video on the enshittification of Google searches. Yeah. This isn't the video that I'm looking for. But if I find it, I'll let you guys know and we can read it together and we can go through it together. But the problem, I guess, for me, amazing that they all come out healthy and well fed. Yeah. They've done it so you have to search more and get more ads. Probably. It's just sad. It's just the situation is just sad. And it's sad that anyone thinks that this is cause to celebrate for. As if Israel hasn't personally killed a bunch of hostages, an unknown number of hostages, at least 3 for sure. And how many have they killed in airstrikes? Who knows? It's the same guy who ruined Yahoo is now the head of Google search, probably. I wonder if the U.S. news will cover even one death of a Palestinian during that raid half as much as the interviews with the hostages. Yeah. Yep. Literally everyone knows you can't even rescue people with bombs. You can only do it with men. It's just ridiculous. It's just. I just don't have any words for it. I just think it's absurd. Anyways. 6 counting the ones that they killed a few months ago. Is this hitting the rounds in Israeli media? Oh, of course it is. I mean, here is a bunch of Israeli protesters that are being dispersed with water cannons by Israeli police because they want to have the hostages released and not, continue to get killed.
For 2 reasons. One is for the changing of this government, but we don't like what they are not doing at all. And the second for the refugees and all the people, the families of the people who are kidnapped in Gaza. Nobody thinks about them. Nobody. They are thinking about the destroying of Gaza. It's very bad, all right, but we don't have any chance to come over the Hamas because they are putting all their forces inside and between the civilian people, and then all the war is against us because we are killing the civilian people.
I was muted. Thank you. Do you know what I find very interesting, chap? That they can't seem to find a single hostage that is willing to commend the IDF. Out of all the hostages that have been saved via trade, via rescue mission, I have yet to see even one interview with a hostage unequivocally praising the IDF and their methods. It's almost like, when you're a hostage in Gaza and your life is at risk as much as any of the other Gazans, because Israel is currently actively bombing the area that you're in, suddenly you experience some level of empathy and you're like, wow, actually living like that was terrifying. Actually, we shouldn't continue to just airstrike that shit. Hey, I'm involved with anti-war organizations here in Israel, though I'm not active. 2 members were recently arrested for hate speech for singing something that said, "Thou shalt not murder." Incredible. Incredible. Just so insane. Except for that one Doug Luber. I mean, that one was like, that's one of those Israelis that's totally deluded. That like doesn't even exist. That's one of those people that's like an American that got COVID, but that is still being anti-vax. Like they're in a hospital bed on their deathbed, literally. And they're like, yeah, I still wouldn't get the vaccine. It's like, wow, Jesus Christ. Wow. Even if I were rescued as a hostage, I would, even if being held by the most bloodthirsty militants out there, I found out you murdered 200 innocent people to get my ass, I couldn't live with myself. Here's the thing. Even if you aren't willing to accept Palestinians as human beings, right? And the only thing you care about is the Israeli lives, right? Let's just go full genocide rhetoric. If you were a hostage being rescued and you saw the IDF kill your fellow hostages, how would you not have survivor guilt after that? That you got to be saved by the IDF, and used as a propaganda pawn for the IDF, knowing that other people who were captured alongside you did not get so lucky. Nope, no survivor guilt allowed. IDF is the most moral army of all time. Oh, of course, yeah.